The views expressed are not necessarily those of KSCJ and Powell Broadcasting Company. This program is not intended to replace the advice of doctors or other clinical providers. Consult with your practitioner to ensure the proper course of action for you.
Welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well on AM 1360, FM 94.9 KSCJ. This program is dedicated to your mental health wellness and brought to you by Family Services, a United Way partner agency. Here's your host, Art Silva.
Good morning and welcome to When Things Aren't Going Well. This show is all about your mental wellness and how you can help yourself navigate the daily highway of life. Our show is brought to you by Family Services, a United Way partner agency serving the Siouxland community. Our topic today is going off the grid. And joining me today from Family Services is Chief Operating Officer Brenda Geisinger and clinical therapist Amy Small. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Well, good to see you both. And going off the grid is I'm excited about this show because I'm intrigued. Are you talking about like the Federal Witness Protection Program?
Sometimes it can feel like
be
that,
feel
and
like
that's
that,
all right.
Yeah. Well, let's define what do we mean by going off the grid. Amy?
So my favorite way to describe going off the grid would be going camping, because that's my thing and I love that. But it doesn't have to be wilderness. Going off the grid can be turning off your cell phone, turning off the TV, turning off the tablets, and just being present in the day.
Absolutely. I think it's all the electronics, all the buzz, got to go, go, go. And it's shutting everything off and just sitting. And that may even include not getting in your car. It's really just being present in your surroundings and being aware of what's going on.
Now, let me ask you this question. Why? Why do you want to go off the grid?
Because it's super awesome not having anybody calling you or emailing you or, hey, what do you think about this? Can you take care of this? And it's like this time of just totally decompressing and just being one with yourself and your thoughts, or reading a book, or doing adult coloring books, because I really like those, or just sitting around and listening to the birds or looking at the stars. I will say, if you're a person that generally responds to things quickly, if you get a text message or a phone call, it is important to let your loved ones know, hey, I'm turning my phone off for a few hours. Otherwise, you might end up with your dad at your house knocking on the door to make sure you're okay. I might have experienced that. I don't know, but...
I think it's really important for people to just be around in their surroundings and taking a moment and breathing, taking that breath. And sometimes that constant interruption, or I got to do, or I got to respond, gets so overwhelming, and your brain just needs to settle a minute and embrace the joy and embrace what's going around, and can give you a moment to retune or just catch up and settle down. And you will find yourself more refreshed and more focused, and it helps with your mental health. It just gives you a moment.
I think the other thing with that is once you do it a time or two, you figure out, I really do have time to do this, right? Because at first we're like, oh, I can't do this. The world won't survive without me.
I don't have
time. Right. How are people going to find where their socks are if I'm not answering my phone or whatever it is? They will survive and they'll figure it out. And plus, it gives yourself like this, it's okay to just be you for a while. It's okay.
Well, that's it right there. You touched on that. You have permission to do this. Yes. And I think sometimes the only person that's going to give you permission to do this is yourself. Mm-hmm. And because, you're saying, well, it's going on vacation. When I come back, the elves didn't do all the work. And now I got twice as much work to do. Mm-hmm. So going off the grid is something you got to get yourself up for. You got to want to do this because it's going to give you some type of benefit or perceived benefit. So have you ladies gone off the grid?
Absolutely. And we're not suggesting you have to do it for a whole weekend or every day. Find what works for you. But I would really encourage people to try it. It might be you're going to do your nails once a week, do a manicure, or you might want to journal, or just sitting on your back porch and having a cup of coffee every morning for 15 minutes and just being at peace. What works for you?
I will tell you, when you first start going off the grid, it can be really anxiety provoking because you're not used to that. And we've I'm speaking general, and I know there's probably some people that aren't like this, but we've come so attached to our devices and our phones. We practically have our computers in our pockets all the time. And so it's training yourself, like, and we've said before, giving permission to be by yourself, but also knowing that you might be putting importance on things that maybe shouldn't be the top priority in your life, too. So it gives you time to, like, reorganize what your priorities are.
Well, that would apply differently to different people. And I remember my wife, when she had the kids, and her way of going off the grid was she closed the door, put a sign on the door, bedroom door, and say, "Unless you're bleeding or throwing up, don't bother me." Mm-hmm. And that was her way of going off the grid for a little bit of time. Yep. So, I mean, mothers, what would you give for advice for mothers wanting to go off the grid?
I think parents in general, mothers, fathers, anyone, if you aren't fully feeling relaxed, or not fully relaxed, but if you're not taking time for yourself, you're not refilling your own cup, and so you're not being the best parent that you can be. I know sometimes we can feel guilty doing things on our own, or letting our kids be with a babysitter, or locking the bathroom door and just being in there for 5 or 10 minutes by yourself, right? But if that is what's giving you time to refill your cup and rejuvenate yourself, you're going to handle whatever situation is going on with your kiddos in a more calm and just a better manner, because you're going to be in a better mental state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Silva, and with me today is Brenda Geisinger and Amy Small from Family Services, and we're talking about going off the grid. Let me ask you this. What's the most extreme you've heard someone going off the grid?
I think sitting in the complete wilderness and they have nothing, not even basic hygiene kind of things like toiletry or showering. For me, that's not going to happen.
That's the extreme.
Some people need that, and that's
Exactly.
where they want to be, and that works for them, and that's great.
This is why I like to clarify it, because I've seen people get conversion vans put together. They got the solar power. They're looking at something completely different, the opposite extreme. But like you said, Brenda, that's good for them. If that makes you feel well accomplished and puts you in your own little space, go for it. But now I'm thinking about going off the grid and bears yanking people out of tents and getting your food and stuff like that. I think I'll go with a Howard Johnson hotel. That's about it for me. Have you any good off the grid stories that you can tell?
Oh no. I think in simple as going off the grid can be, and I think it's extremely important during mealtime. Put the phones down. Leave them in another room. It can be very disruptive to a relationship and how people are communicating. Or even, if you're single and going on dates and someone's always on their phone, it's like, wait, what is this about? Are you really engaging with me? And it's important to put that aside. And we are people, human beings, and with human kindness, because we need to connect, and putting that phone aside. I know there's a restaurant in town that used to put your phone in a box and go have the meal. Phenomenal idea. And I think that should be implemented. And that includes turning off the TV. We don't need the weather or the news going or other shows. Really connect.
We'll give a shout out to Sneakies, because they did a good job with those cell
Yes,
phones.
they
Way
did.
to go, Dave and family. Amy, any of your thoughts on going off that grid, overboard?
I think that overboard is a good word. I think start out small and do what you feel comfortable with. I think about the first time I took my son fishing on our solo mission. I put that worm on that hook. I might have squealed and screamed a little bit. We got a few bites, but we didn't actually ever catch a fish. So for me, the first solo mission, we had the fun, we had the excitement, but I didn't have to take the fish off the hook, right? So I think about that. That's putting my toes in the water. We started small. Now I get to the point where I can take the fish off the hook. I have to have a glove on, but I can get it off the hook. So it's part of start small and get, bigger, if that's the right word, get more intense as you get more comfortable with it.
Well, on that same note, Brendan mentioned things like shutting the phone off at dinner time. What about the TV set at dinner time? Some families have the TV set on while dinner's going, and it has to be a conscious effort, because you're breaking up that routine. When you make this thing, we've always talked about the importance of a routine, but it has to be something that everybody has to agree with and understand the benefits of it, and to challenge yourself to see if you can live without it. What did you miss? So, I mean, it's something I think, I don't know, maybe the TV stations might be mad at me, but put it back on for dessert. But anyway, it's something to think about. It should be done. It's easier, I would think, for an individual as opposed to a family going off the grid, because I'm not sure all family members might be in sync with what you think is a great idea, Mom. So we're going to talk more about that because we're going to come up on our break right now. So, folks, grab another cup of coffee, another glass of juice, and we'll be right back here when things aren't going well on 1360 94.9 KSCJ.
Let's face it, that happens to all of us. However, the pandemic has compounded all of our lives and activities. Even the simplest tasks seem harder. Hi, I'm Brenda Geisinger, the Chief Operating Officer at the Boys and Girls Home and Family Services. Family Services is a United Way partner agency serving children and families of our community, and we're here to help. If you'd like to learn more about Family Services, please contact us via email, website, Facebook, or phone Mary Pickens. At Family Services, we change lives.
Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well on KSCJ. Here's Art Silva.
Welcome back to When Things Aren't Going Well. Our topic today is going off the grid. And during the first half of our show, we talked about symptoms and tried to frame this activity going forward. So now let's talk about this in a few more steps, because I may want to go off the grid, but my kids don't want to. So, they may not be into this. So how do you handle that? Is it something you have to be in a group approval? We're all going to do this, or are you going to take them screaming and gnashing of teeth?
Here's the thing. Parents got to be parents, right? So when they start out, they might be kicking and screaming, and this is something that we're going to do it anyways. And that's okay, because when kids get older, they're going to have a boss. They're going to have, if they're a business owner, they're going to have their customers. There might be some things that they just need to do, as long as it's legal and not causing anybody any harm. It's okay to bring them kicking and screaming. I think another part of that is when you get started with this, it might be like, well, what are we going to do? Are we just going to sit there and stare at each other? Having some conversation starters can be helpful. So like at dinner time, we were talking about putting the phone away, putting the TV away. If you go and ask your kid, how was your day today? They're going to say good or fine, right? But having things like, tell me about a time you saw somebody be kind to somebody today, or tell me 3 things you used a pencil for today, or tell me something that made you laugh today. Then they can't answer that with yes or no, and it starts the conversation. There's a whole, and I know it seems silly because it's your kids, but there's a whole list of conversation starters that you can Google. I have one that I give out to parents of kids that I work with on different ways to get information from your kids and start those conversations.
I think the other thing is don't lay the landmine of we're going off the grid tonight at 10 o'clock and it's 9:55. You got to kind of prep them. And then they can go complain to their friends or go out on Instagram and my mom is crazy. But it gives them a heads up. It gets them prepared. And so they know. And any life change, it takes practice and getting used to. When we're giving up sugar or giving up caffeine, you may not like it at first, but you adjust, and it's a good thing. So starting out small, being prepared, and making an effort to make this work is great.
Well, you bring up a good point, because going off the grid sometimes you don't get the help of friends. And what do your kids do? Okay, you can't call me between 6 and 10 because we're off the grid. Mm-hmm. And then they get that creates pressure, peer pressure. And isn't it great when other families, because they've dealt with this. You see it all the time. My kids on the internet, everybody has some way of dealing with this already. So why not take that full step, give yourself a timeout from all that electronic pressure and everything there, and see how it works. And then come back and maybe do it in a modified, I know sometimes, and we'll get into this because I want to hold off a little bit on Facebook and stuff, but it goes back to keeping up with the Joneses, or you think that the Joneses are putting this in style, so you got to do the same thing. And sometimes going off the grid lets you be a little more creative about what you want to do, and maybe a little more in control of what you want to do. Brenda?
It also gives you a moment to, what do I really think? What's going on in my brain? And just being aware of yourself and having those conversations if there's others around you, just really getting to know each other once again. And it's a wonderful experience.
Amy, let me ask you this.
Oh, boy.
Because you probably are the most of all of us. You're the most adventurous. Okay.
Okay.
So talk about. Okay, I want to go off the grid, and when it didn't work. Let's talk about when it didn't work.
Here's the thing. I think that it's an opportunity for us to learn and grow on how we should do things differently. And we also have to be okay with getting dirty and muddy, right? And so the thing is, there's been many of times where I've gone on an adventure with my son and we've come home head to toe in mud. It didn't end up going the way that we expected it to go, but some of those memories are the ones that he constantly brings up and saying, hey, Mom, remember that time where this happened and so then we went to the splash pad to get washed off, or we did this, or we jumped in the mud puddles and we fell, or whatever it was. But those are the things that he remembers more than the times that it did work out. So I think that no matter what is, it's the experience that you're making and the connection that you're making with the person you're with. The other thing is, if you're by yourself, it's also an opportunity for you to build confidence in your problem solving skills, right? Because if you're at some place, it didn't work out, you have to figure out how you're either going to get out of there or fix whatever is broken, or just regroup. And if you were like my Siri phone, when I take the wrong turn, recalculate, right? What you're going to do to get to your end goal. So it also can be a real confidence builder in yourself too.
It could also give you a definition. Yeah, I don't like this. I don't care what you tell me. I tried it. It's a no-go. And that's okay. It's something then you're aware of.
That's what I'm thinking along those lines. I don't like being alone. So why would I want to go off the grid by myself? I think some people can. This is where one size doesn't fit all.
That's right.
And so I would have to go on the grid, off the grid, with a group. And I think that might be interesting because I still want that interaction. I don't want to be alone. Whereas some people want to be alone. So I think try it out in a small way, modified way. Maybe you shut the TV off during dinner. Maybe let's try doing this together. And I think that helps alleviate other problems of being alone. Because coming out of this COVID deal, the last thing I want to be is alone. I mean, it's just been too long. So as we come back into this deal, I think it's a great time for us to look at. I think we've been off the grid with COVID. Geez, we just been in a different kind of way, and not in a good way though. So going off the grid should be in a good way where we try to set some objectives. What are we looking for? How did it work? What would I do differently next time? Is my family still talking to me? What I got to do to put this thing back together again? So, I mean, a lot of changes happen with that. I don't know if I could do it. Go ahead, Amy.
I think to go along with that is it's okay to go off the grid with an expert. So, I think I get ideas in my head sometimes, and I really wanted to milk a cow. Like, I have never milked a cow. I'm like, I want to do this. And so there's a little local dairy outside of the town where I live. And I messaged them. I said, hey, can I come milk cows? And they're like, sure. So when I went out there, and I had, her name is Jessica, and she is an amazingly strong woman that runs this dairy. And she was so patient with me. And she took the time to teach me and I actually got to milk some cows. And it was super awesome and fun. It's probably not something that I'm going to do several times in my life, but I was really excited to have an expert there to help me through that process and that experience. And that's really off the grid. I mean, that experience.
I guess. I mean, that is what else you got in your bucket list there, Amy? But that was something for you. It solved. It answered something, your curiosity, something that you said I did. It was something new. And like you said, I may not want to do it again, but I did it.
Yep.
And so I don't have that resent of wishing I had and I didn't. Brenda?
I think what you're talking about, Art, is very true, though. For some people, going off the grid, it means connecting with another person with no electronics, going to a baseball game together and just hanging out. And you're not on your phones and you're not texting. You're doing something fun without the electronics and you're connecting. And that's what we're talking about. Whether you're connecting with another person or you're connecting with yourself, you don't have this outside noise constantly interfering with the experience.
That's a good point. It doesn't have to be a total radical movement to go off the grid. Living off the grid would boost your mental health as it eliminates the stress and anxiety triggered by society and all of society's expectations. So as you discover, as Amy said, your inner voice and freedom, you break down any negative thoughts and patterns that you have. And this results in accomplishing new goals. So you won't know unless you try. And this just, Brent, I want to throw something at you and Facebook. And maybe that's a reason to go off the grid. Some people look at it differently, but, that's social media in general.
And sometimes it's okay. I'm going to turn off my, social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, for one day or 1 week and just need to disconnect. So you don't get caught up in the envy or the comments or whatever. It's just giving a moment to recalculate and where you're at with things.
I think also with that is any of those social media sites, what you interact with is kind of what more shows up. I don't know. It's some kind of algorithm. I don't know all the business behind that, but that's what shows up more on your page. So if you're interacting with more positive things, potentially you're going to have more positive things show up on your page. And the other thing, it can be scary thinking, I'm going to have a whole day or a whole week without that. Start with an hour. Right? Mm-hmm. The other thing with that is, and this is totally a little bit opposite of what we're talking about, but you can find groups on there that like to do experiences. And when you're talking about finding a group to do something together, you can connect with people through those, but then turn it off when you go do the activity, right?
All great suggestions. We're coming up on the end of our show, and every week we end our show with a little joke. So humor is medicine for the soul. So I'm going to ask you this. What does Alexander the Great and Winnie the Pooh have in common?
You always stump us.
Okay. Their middle name. Brenda, Amy, thank you very much. It's been a great week. I want to give a shout out to Scott Tucker, the computer doctor, and I want to thank our audience for joining us this morning. If you have any questions, comments, or would like to inquire about our services, please, or seek employment. We have employment opportunities at Boys and Girls Home. Please go to our website at bghome.net. When things aren't going, we'll be back next Saturday morning at 7 right here in 1360 AM 94.9 FM KSCJ. And our topic will be Breathe with Joanne and Lisa. This is to be on yoga and meditation. Have a great week and may the sun shine on you.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you.